The first time I wrote nonfiction, it was Charlie Wilson's War.
Mm-hmm.
And I swore after that I was never going to write nonfiction again. And then I wrote The Social Network. And then I wrote Moneyball. And then I wrote Steve Jobs. And then Molly's Game, Chicago 7. And now this. I can't seem to stop
What is it?
writing nonfiction. But listen, what I love is a good story. And I think that the only thing better than a story you've never heard is a story you think you've heard. And I think that that's the case with Lucy and Desi and I Love Lucy.
Good morning.
Don Glass is directing this week.
We'll be fine. You're wondering what's going on.
No matter what's going on, we all support you 1,000%.
I'd like to find out what's going on before I make that commitment.
A long time ago, Lucy accidentally checked the wrong box on her voter registration. That's the first act of a new episode right there.
Lucy gets blacklisted.
That's not a joke, Bob.
You made the joke. I just put the
Last
wrong
week,
button.
she testified in a closed session. She was cleared. Yeah, she was cleared. So I don't know where Winchell got his information, but it was wrong. As you can see, it was not picked up by any newspaper. So let's do our show. Jess, it's your stage.
I Love Lucy, episode 204, season 2, episode 4. Ethel and Fred fight. Teleplay by Bob Carroll, Madeline Pugh, and myself.
The three of you to write this one?
Okay, come on. And directing this week, Donald Glass is back with us. Let's give him a hand. It's good to be back. Act 1, interior, the Ricardos' living room, night.
Excuse me, Donald.
Yes,
Good morning, I'm Lucille Ball.
I sure know that, Lucy.
I wanted to make sure because you haven't been here in a while. Is it because you've been going through puberty?
I look young, yes, but I went through it a long time ago, and I haven't been here because I've been directing at Danny Thomas.
With the communist kid? Fuck off.
Jesus Christ. You don't have to fuck off, but you do need to know that Danny does jokes. Few people do it better. I do physical comedy.
I've seen every episode of the show.
So have 60 million other people. Are none of them professional television directors?
She's kidding.
I can tell.
I'm hazing you a little, Donald. It's just my way of saying I have no confidence in you at all.
Welcome to Behind the Lens. Today, once again here, I had to invite this writer, director, producer, everything he does, one I saw being the Ricardos. There is so much to talk about this movie, and it is such a high wire act in so many ways, and absolutely fascinating. So welcome, Aaron Sorkin. Hi.
Hi, thank you. It's good to be here.
I haven't talked to you since I saw this movie a couple of weeks ago, maybe a little less, and I was blown away. I have to be really honest with you. I know a lot about Lucy and Desi and a lot about what happened in their lives, just on virtual things I've done in this business and stumbled onto. And when I looked at this movie, I saw the structure of it, and everything you did to bring this to the screen was really extraordinary. And I just have to find out how you did it. I know you're Aaron Sorkin, but
Well, first of all, thank you very much.
yeah.
Here's how it happened. The producer, Todd Black, wanted to have a meeting with me because he wanted to talk about Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. And I went to the meeting, and the first thing he told me I didn't know was that Lucille Ball had been accused of being a communist.
Yeah.
And after that first meeting, and it would take several meetings, take about a year and a half before I was able to commit to it. And at that point, I was just writing it. I didn't know I was going to be the director.
Because you've since directed, obviously Molly's Game, and of course the trial
and Chicago 7. And it was when Todd and the studio saw Chicago 7 that they decided that I should direct this, and I was very happy to. I was excited to. But the first thing I did was I just wanted to make sure that Lucy being accused of being a communist wasn't something that everybody knew except me. So I asked around, and sure enough, enough people were surprised. And I just saw all these points of friction, very interesting points of friction in their relationship. and how the two of them were so different from Lucy and Ricky. And I got this idea. I didn't want to do a biopic. I didn't want to do a cradle to grave. This happened, then this happened, then this happened.
Right.
It's you can fall into a structural trap there that audiences are very familiar with. What I like doing instead is compressing time and space. And I saw a structural possibility where it could take place during 1 week, one production week of I Love Lucy, Monday table read to Friday audience taping, and that I would take 3 important moments from their lives that happened while they were shooting I Love Lucy, and I would make them happen in the same week to put as much pressure on the two of them as possible. And that's where I started.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. I love the idea of wrapping the whole thing around this 1 week of production of one particular episode, but weaving in other things, including other episodes, their past movie, when they met and everything. And it comes off seamless, but I just think it's so fraught with peril to pull that off, knowing, people know probably Lucy was the most famous face in the world.
Yeah.
At one point,
It is fraught with peril, and for Nicole, of course, too. For Nicole and Javier playing these two incredibly famous people. Lucy, especially, I discovered when I started doing this, people have very strong feelings about not Lucille Ball, Lucy Ricardo, and every time people would mix them up, it would sort of confirm my feeling that I was on the right track with this movie, because Lucille Ball doesn't look like Lucille Ball. When when you're asked to imagine Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, what you're thinking of is Lucy and Ricky Ricardo. That's how you're picturing them. The same way Charlie Chaplin doesn't look like Charlie Chaplin, because you're picturing the little tramp. And so I thought that I would take every opportunity to show Lucy not Lucy looking like Lucy Ricardo, to have that contrast. And I found a way. She was, I don't need to tell you, she was a comedic genius. And sometimes genius is hard to dramatize. Usually it amounts to writing in wax on a window in a college dormitory. That's how you show a genius. But in this case, there were opportunities to go inside Lucy's head and show that she can extrapolate out at a table read, being pitched something in a writer's room. She can see the 12 moves ahead of what this is going to look like when it's finished, how the audience is going to respond, what's going to work, what's not going to work. And that was a way into her brain.
What this also is, it's a wonderful romance. And that's what you're showing throughout this. Her absolute determination to save her relationship and marriage with him, which is the reason we all still have I Love Lucy, I think, in our lives, that it's never gone out, because of her determination to have him at home with her.
No, you're right. And that what you just said brought us a couple of things. First of all, these two were deeply, passionately in love with each other. And whether you're watching the movie, whether you're reading a book about them, it's frustrating because you kind of want to shake them and say, why in the world can't the two of you get it together? Even after they divorced, if you watch interviews with them after they're divorced, they're plainly still in love with each other till the day that they died. Now, you mentioned Lucy's desire to have Desi at home more. Desi, first of all, he would tour around with his orchestra playing clubs in Chicago, New York, Miami, and of course Ciro's here in LA back when there were Ciro's. And he also spent time with the guys and, on the boat playing poker all night and drinking. Lucy had a real desire, along with her own career ambition, she had a real desire for domesticity. She badly wanted the white picket fence and dinner time. And it wasn't happening. And when CBS executives came to her when she was doing the radio show, My Favorite Husband,
Yeah.
which was written by the trio of I Love Lucy writers, Jess Oppenheimer, Bob Carroll, and Madeline Pugh, and said, we want to put My Favorite Husband on television. She had an idea, which was, yes, let's do that. Except if Desi plays my husband instead of Richard Nenning, we'll be together every day. And home for us will be the Ricardos' living room. It'll be this little postage stamp side stage, and that's good enough for me. And even that didn't quite work out.
It's amazing. The casting here is like casting a Marvel movie in a weird way, a superhero thing. You're never going to quite win because everyone's got an idea of what it should be, and you just plowed ahead here. I was interested to see that Javier Bardem actually was attached to this when Todd Black came up with it, contacted him, wanted to play Desi for a while, right?
Javier did want to play Desi, and we did this all during COVID, so meetings were by Zoom. And listen, Javier, because he's Javier, I'd have offered him the part without the Zoom meeting. He's just, the 7 principal cast members, led by the 2 leads, are all extraordinary. But Javier, in this Zoom call, he knew what he was doing. He was so charming, so full of life. So it was exactly what you wanted as Desi. And he even lied when he needed to. I asked him. I said, Javier, it's not a deal breaker by any means, but have you ever in your life picked up a guitar and strummed it? Oh, I play the guitar. I play the guitar. Have you ever banged a drum? Oh, I've got drums here. I'm playing the bongos all the time. Actors know that if they're asked if they can ride a horse, you say yes.
Yeah.
So Javier said yes to everything. Yes, he can dance a rumba. And it was the most fun I've ever had on a Zoom call until now, Pete. With both of them, with Nicole and Javier, I made it very, very clear. I am not looking for a physical or vocal impersonation of these 2 people. I don't want that to be what you're worried about, okay? They're going to be calling you Lucy and Desi, and you guys look enough like Lucy and Desi. We're going to, believe me, go see the movie, and by the time you get to the end, the 2 of them will have made a solid case for themselves. And they did, even though Nicole, who had worked hard on 2 different voices, one for Lucille Ball and one for Lucy Ricardo, she did end up doing that in the film.
Yeah, and I happened to be interviewing her on Oscar day, actually. It was on the morning of the Oscars.
This past Oscars?
Yeah, the past Oscars, when she was shooting this movie, still shooting it, but it was on Sunday. And so she was doing an interview. It was for another thing we were doing for The Undoing, actually. And I asked her, so how's it going? I was just really curious. I just couldn't wait, for this and to see how it goes. And she just looked at me, but this was not on camera. It was before we started shooting. She goes, this is the hardest role I've ever done. And you could see the vulnerability of a great actor here. Like, there. She even did little impressions of her Lucy Ricardo, the Lucy face, but going like, it really is. And I said, she'll nail it because she's got that insecurity going on here.
Well, she did nail it. And she's right. It's a very difficult role. 2 roles, really, because as Lucille Ball, she's got to play Lucy Ricardo. She nailed it. I was always waiting for the day when she's got to go crazy. One of these days, this is just, it's hard work every day. She's got to be scared. She's playing this very famous woman that people have such strong feelings about. When is she going to lock herself in her trailer? And she never did. She was game for anything, including trusting me in the first place.
Yeah, which is so great. And then to see her recreate like the grape stomping scene, which you have briefly in things. I mean, what actor wants to even take that on? It's so famous, and we know every move of it and things.
That's right.
It's brilliant. I mean, she really did it.
Yeah, there are, as he said, there are these shards of "I Love Lucy" moments that are coming out of her head. These black and white moments where we do a frame by frame recreation of that moment from "I Love Lucy." The first day we were shooting an "I Love Lucy" scene, it was about 2 weeks into the shoot. The first day we were scheduled to shoot an "I Love Lucy" scene, I had blocked out about 4 hours that morning for Nicole and I to stand in front of a monitor and watch playback and say, all right, she puts her left hand on the fireplace mantle, turns right to Ethel, does that. Nicole had already learned it. She came in knowing every square inch of that thing that she was going to be doing. Every grape was in the right place.
The other actress was great, by the way, in that scene too. So good.
The Italian grape stomper, the woman, she was terrific. She was terrific.
It was so great. So have you worked with J.K. Simmons before? You knew him, didn't you?
J.K. was an understudy in the original Broadway cast of A Few Good Men.
Oh, wow.
So I worked with him when I was in my 20s. I was living in New York at the time, and I got a call that he was going on in a Wednesday matinee. So I ran to the theater. I wanted to catch him, and I was knocked out. I knew this guy was for real, and we were very lucky to get J.K. and Nina Arianda in the film. The two of them
Did
were
you have him in
fantastic.
mind because he seems such a natural to play William Frawley?
It's the only time really I've ever had someone in mind while I was writing.
Really? That's
yeah.
interesting.
I just, again, we were very lucky to get him.
And she's great too. It's Vivian Vance, really.
She sure is. We know her film work, but she's played very difficult roles on Broadway, and she's fantastic. And I made sure that I said to Francine Maisler, our casting director, when you go to Nina's agent, be sure that Nina understands that I want her to play Vivian Vance, that I'm not thinking of her as Ethel Mertz.
Yeah.
What woman wants to think that they're right to play Ethel Mertz? She's going to have to do a little Ethel, but she's there to play Vivian Vance, who was herself. Both Lucille Ball and Vivian Vance were beautiful women. Back then in 1952, you couldn't be sexy on television. We were nowhere near that yet. But they were both beautiful, and it caused some friction between Lucille and Vivian, that Vivian had to be, that all the jokes were about how undesirable Vivian was.
Yeah.
There's the scene in the wardrobe room where Lucy won't allow her to wear that nice dress.
It's so amazing. You look at all of this, it's extraordinary. How much did you have from the estate, from Lucy Arnaz, from Desi Jr. in cooperation? Were they involved at all? Did they look at the script? What was the...
Yes, Lucy. First of all, one of the things that convinced me that I should do this was in those, over the course of that year and a half, those half dozen meetings or so with Todd. And I should mention, by the way, Todd's then development executive, a woman named Jenna Block, had done her college thesis on Lucille Ball. And she was sort of instrumental in pitching me and trying to get me excited about this. But we had a lunch with Lucy Arnaz. Mm-hmm. And Lucy said to me, take the gloves off. My mother was not an easy woman by any means. Take the gloves off. And that really freed me up. And she has been incredibly supportive along the way. And I'm grateful to her.
You do go back all the way to 1940 in this movie, in the flashbacks to Too Many Girls, where they basically met, the movie they were on. And what was the idea there? Because then you're jumping ahead by more than a decade there.
Right.
But it seems to work really well and be believable there.
It does. Mike, early on when it was just kind of in its infancy in my mind, but I was trying to picture something. I was thinking that I wouldn't do flashbacks, that I would just keep it in this week. But it was too important. You had to go back to show where the cracks in the structure of their relationship were going to be. So, yes, we go back to when they first met, and it's an incredibly romantic meeting and first date that they have, and they're clearly in love right away. But the second time we go back, he sees what happens when she comes to the club to watch the orchestra, that at the stage door, everybody goes right to her. They want her autograph. Right. And suddenly he's holding her purse, which Javier said he could identify with. He's held Penelope's purse many times.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, like I said, the whole thing's a high wire act that you pull off. And you know, when I tell people about this movie, because, you know, I got to see it early, I say, are you into Lucy-Desi particularly? Do you know the lore and everything? Because if you do, there's an extra added layer here that Aaron Sorkin has thrown in so much in here that it's great. If you don't know it, it's eye-opening too. I mean, it really is.
Well, that's nice to hear. And it's you cannot have ever watched an episode of I Love Lucy and enjoy this movie just fine. You're not going to be lost. If you are an I Love Lucy fan, there are going to be some things that strike you.
That's absolutely right. Well, I can't wait for everybody to see this film, and just another outstanding job here, as you might expect from Aaron Sorkin. Thanks again for joining us here.
Hey, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I'll see you later.